Let's go on up to the phone line. I don't want to keep Joe waiting too long. We got Joe Deck, VCU Baseball play-by-play analyst on ESPN+. Good morning, Joe. How are we doing on this Thursday?
Oh, doing great, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you've had a front row seat to this VCU baseball team all season as they're now getting set to head down to Chapel Hill, playing a regional with some heavy hitters. You got UNC, ECU, Tennessee. So just right off the bat, man, I'm back-to-back guests with these puns. I don't mean to do it, but right off the bat, how does VCU match up in this Chapel Hill region? How do you see the Rams faring in these games?
Look, they're the 4 seed, so obviously they're an underdog coming in. And this is, to borrow a term that's used in the World Cup a lot, this is probably the group of death. I mean, this region is tough. North Carolina is the overall 5 seed, and they get Tennessee out of the SEC, who's a strong team. East Carolina, who's used to going to super regionals. VCU, who has been in the regionals a ton recently. They've won the last 4 A-10 tournaments they've participated in. 2 out of the last 3 years. It's an incredibly tough group for UNC. They're playing a VCU team that's won 14 of their last 16 games. It's a 20-plus win turnaround. So, look, this is a VCU team that plays a lot of tough, close games. They're never going to give up. It feels like, Jack, you got to watch probably, or at least see the highlights of the last game at the Diamond. That was a walk-off home run.
Yeah.
So they've played down to the wire quite a bit. The last game at the Diamond is a walk-off home run by Ty Glethert. So this is a team that, no matter what the situation is in the game, always has confidence in themselves to come out on top.
You kind of answered my next question here, Joe, because 11.7, a college baseball media outlet that I really enjoy following along with, they've pegged some potential 4 seeds that could wreck their regional and kind of play spoiler to it all. And VCU was the first one that they've pegged as a potential 4 seed to wreck its regional. You said it. They play down to the wire. They play close games. They know how to kind of grit out these wins. What is it about this team that kind of puts that mentality in them?
I think this VCU team has the perfect mix of new faces and veteran leadership, which in today's college athletics, doesn't matter the sport, is incredibly difficult. The portal always seems to move people around, and VCU surely went to the portal this past year, but they used the portal to fill in holes. They kept some solid guys. So when you look at their batting order in particular, I think when you get into the heart of the order, it's extremely tough to navigate because you have Ty Glethert in that 3 spot. You have Jacob Lee. You have Kirkpatrick. That now we're not even talking about the guys like Petit and DeFranco at the top of the order who are also dangerous. And, oh, yeah, by the way, at the bottom of the order, you have Trent Adelman, who's a junior who's played all 3 years. He's been at VCU in right field. He's a great defensive right fielder. And he has the ability, which in today's baseball game I think is highly underrated, situational hitting. He's not always going to get a hit, maybe, but he's going to find a way to get that run in if there's a guy at third with less than 2 outs. And that's so incredibly hard in today's game, which seems to be boom or bust, home run or strikeout. Trent Adelman is the perfect hitter you want up with a runner at third and less than 2 outs.
Joe Deck joining us on this Thursday morning. You mentioned a guy at the top of the order for VCU, Dante DeFranco. Just a quick aside on Dante. When I was calling games down in Charlotte for the 49ers, he began his college career. And when I saw one of the lineups early on in the season, I saw DeFranco near the top. I thought, he still has eligibility. That just goes a very long way for a guy at the top of your lineup who's probably seen more pitches in his college career than most anyone in this region in Chapel Hill.
I mean, he's a guy who definitely has cemented his role at the top of the order. He gets on base. He's got a lot of speed. He plays shortstop, so you kind of have to have speed to play that position. But he's also a really reliable guy in the middle of the infield, which I think VCU very much needed coming into this year. They found that in DeFranco. He's been exceptional. I know you got to see him in Charlotte, so you already know all this, Jack. But for folks that might not know, that's a guy, he wears number 8. So being an Orioles fan, flashes of Cal Ripken when I see him going into the hole to make those strong throws across the diamond and get the outs that they need defensively. I'm like, man, this guy can play. So he has been an exceptionally good player for VCU at the top of the order. And I think that's what makes this VCU team so hard. You can't really take a batter off throughout the order.
Joe Deck, VCU baseball play-by-play analyst on ESPN+, joining us on this Thursday morning. You mentioned earlier it's been a 20-plus win turnaround for Sean Thompson. Year 2 for the new guy, the VCU alum. This season has been phenomenal, right? What's been the difference between year 1 and year 2?
So I think we've touched on some of it already. The batting order being tough from top to bottom is a change from last year. Again, some of that's portal, some of that's guys really stepping up in the next year of eligibility that they've had. But the other thing you can't ignore is the pitching staff, whether it's Zachary Peters out of the bullpen, who's the guy that they love to go to as a closer. He's got 200 strikeouts in his career now. His ERA this year is 1.60. Opponent batting average under 160 at 156. You have Eli Holbert, Patrick Stites, and Dawson Newman, who are great arms out of the bullpen. Holbert's now under a 3.0. Stites has been up there on the national pitcher watch list all season long. And then the other guy that I think has really stepped up in his sophomore season out of the bullpen is Cooper Campbell, Virginia kid out of Lynchburg, went to EC Glass High School. He's become one of the more reliable arms they go to in either the middle or the late innings. He had a lot of work in the A-10 tournament, did a great job there. So I think the pitching has really stepped up this season for VCU and made them so hard to beat. In the A-10 tournament, I wasn't surprised. St. Joe's goes in as the 1 seed. It's not all that surprising to see them lose. The top seed has only won that tournament once in the last 5 years. So it really comes down to it's 6 teams that make it. It's double elimination, and it really comes down to who's got the deepest pitching staff and who can go if something falls apart. VCU has that. I mean, and the weather really wreaked havoc on that bracket this year too. So a lot of games starting, not finishing. So then you have to go to a different arm the next day. How does that work out for VCU? Sean Thompson pushed all the right buttons. Year 2 has been a huge, huge improvement for him. And I'm happy to see it. You know, he's a guy that is used to playing in a super regional at VCU not all that long ago. So now he gets to coach in a regional, trying to coach his way into a super regional. What a great story that would be. One of the youngest coaches in Division I, period, in all sports. So if he's able to navigate this tough Chapel Hill regional and get into a super regional, the storylines kind of write themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be phenomenal. I can't wait for it to happen if it does, because that'll be a great story for us to talk about here on Fitz the Bill. But from your seat behind the mic, who's been the one guy maybe we haven't touched on so far that has been the X factor this season for VCU?
I think it's Jacob Lee. He's a guy that behind the plate can throw runners out. When he's at the plate, he's just mashing the ball. 17 plus home runs now back-to-back seasons, 17 home run seasons, back-to-back seasons. He's just absolutely crushed the ball. The first player in VCU history to have 17 plus home runs back-to-back years. He's third all-time as a sophomore in career home runs at VCU. So he's chasing down, the record is at 37. He's chasing that down pretty quickly. So he's a guy that just has the ability to smash the ball out of the park anytime he comes up and change a game. I'd say another player to mention that we haven't mentioned in that batting order, Nick Flores. Guy's a double hitting machine. Every time he comes up, I was making the jokes calling the games. I was like, well, Nick Flores is in his bag again. It's a double. And it didn't feel like it was an official VCU game if Nick Flores didn't have a double in it. So like every time he came up, he was finding the gaps in left or right center or hitting them right down the line where they needed to be to turn singles into doubles.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the stats and how everyone ranks in the Atlantic 10, and I think he's, if not the top, maybe second in doubles hit this season in the A-10. Yeah. It's just a scary bat to have in the lineup. Something interesting, though, is no position players, if I'm not mistaken, made an all-conference team this season, which is kind of an anomaly for a team playing, or at least still playing at this point in the season, heading to a region. Typically, they've got at least 1 or 2 position players on an all-conference team. You mentioned it. You don't have a batter off throughout the entire lineup. Is that just kind of the way it's done? Are they more of a, we're going to get it done by committee rather than having just this 1 or 2 guy in our lineup who's hitting .410 and smashing the ball?
I think that is it. And I think you look in some of those positions. I noticed that too, Jack. And when that came out, I was like, "How does this make sense?"
Because you hear about
so
Lee
well.
all the time, and I was like, "How is
Sure.
he not an all-conference guy?" Flores, he's a doubles hitting machine, like you said. How is he not all-conference? It was a little head scratching to me.
Yeah, and Kirkpatrick is another guy at third base who's been just mashing the ball all season long, and you're like, man, how is he not all conference? But then you look, and the A10 does have talent all around it. It's a really underrated league when it comes to baseball. But when you look at what the team is doing as a whole, that's really what makes the difference. It's not a bunch of individuals. It's a team that comes together, rallies each other, picks each other up when somebody's in a slump. That's why when they've gone through some losses, it's almost like everyone goes through the slump at the same time. It's why they haven't had extended slumps this season. They're quickly able to turn it around. This is a team that knocked off, at the time, number 9 UVA in Richmond. So this is a team that when they're facing elite pitching, they don't cower. They kind of rally each other and relish that opportunity and want to make the most of it. This is also a VCU team that knows what happened earlier in the regular season when they played UNC, and I'm sure is looking very much forward to correcting that loss in Chapel Hill back in February.
Yeah, UNC always a tough team to play. It's going to be a fun regional down there in Chapel Hill. Joe, really appreciate your time on this Thursday morning. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jack.
Of course, there goes Joe Deck, VCU Baseball play-by-play analyst for the Rams on ESPN+. VCU Baseball, they'll take on UNC first down there in the Chapel Hill Regional, a regional that features ECU and Tennessee as well. Some heavy hitters. I like how Joe described it, keeping it going with the World Cup a little bit. It's the group of death. That is a tough region. If I'm UNC too, I'm a little upset that I got that type of region because those are some tough teams you've got out in your region. But I guess that's the cost of doing business when you're the 5th overall seed in the nation rather than a top 4 seed. But if I'm UNC, I'm a little upset about that. But VCU should have a chance. 11.7 has pegged them as a potential 4 seed that could wreak havoc in its regional. Kind of feels fitting that they say wreak havoc with everything going on over there at the Siegel Center. But really appreciate Joe's time. Excited to hopefully catch up with him again, maybe head coach Sean Thompson if VCU is able to make it out of that Chapel Hill Regional.